Welcome to Why I Left, a podcast that explores the Great Resignation. I'm your host, Brian Akar. Join me as I chronicle real stories from real people about the reasons they decided to leave their jobs during the pandemic and what has happened since. Hello, and thanks for tuning in to this episode of Why I Left. Today, we have a very special guest who conquered adversity to become a powerhouse in helping entrepreneurs secure funding for their dreams. Get ready to be inspired by the remarkable journey of Kat Weaver, the founder of Power to Pitch. Kat's resilience and ability to craft compelling narratives allowed her to win an incredible 22 out of 23 pitch competitions. Now, she's dedicated to empowering founders with the skills and strategies to create winning pitches and build lasting relationships with investors. Stay tuned as we uncover Kat's secret to success and gain valuable insights for all those seeking funding in the competitive world of entrepreneurship. Let's go check it out. All right, welcome back. So joining us today is a true force to be reckoned with in the world of entrepreneurship and fundraising. We have with us Kat Weaver. Now, Kat is the founder of Power to Pitch, and she has transformed the lives of countless founders by teaching them how to tell their stories effectively and secure the funding they need to scale their businesses. Now, with an impressive record of winning 22 out of 23 pitch competitions and securing six figures in capital for her own venture, Kat's expertise is sought after by entrepreneurs worldwide. And her passion for helping founders develop winning pitches, pitch decks, and fundraising strategies has made her an invaluable resource in the startup community. So please welcome the dynamic and inspiring Kat Weaver to the show. So hi, Kat. How you doing?
Hi. Thank you so much for such an inspiring intro. I've never had something so robust like that. So I appreciate you having me. Of course. Look,
I know a lot about you for, so I interviewed Katie for season 2, and I've heard a lot about you, followed your work, and it's just really, really an honor to have you with us today. And so before we kind of talk about all those things, and that this pitch competition thing is something I'm really impressed with. But tell us about your upbringing and kind of where you call home now.
Yeah, so I like to say I'm a 2-time accidental entrepreneur. So I thought I was going to go into medicine first off, and I thought I had it all planned out, prioritizing all the things. I played tennis in college, and then I had my stuff stolen out of my gym locker. So that's why I invented my first wearable wrist wallet, and then ended up creating some other wearable accessories and patented products thereafter. But I had people knocking on my dorm room door, and it was so exciting that, I had just started a company. So when that had happened, my mom had a bridal store at the time. So I was making everything in there. I was so fortunate to have free resources. And then shortly after I started the business, my mom lost her store of 26 years. And then a professor had told me and said, Kat, don't give up. You should do a pitch competition. And I thought, what in the heck is that? I don't want to talk to people. I don't know how to talk about my business. I was so scared and nervous and frustrated, but then thought, hey, this is really my only shot. I don't have a natural network. So I ended up going into those pitch competitions out of hunger, and I needed this money, and this was my only form of survival. So that's when I did secure 22 of 23 of them. And it allowed me to do everything from Amazon, retail, Good Morning America. And then FedEx had posted my top pitch tips on their YouTube, and it went viral. So I had hundreds of founders DMing me and asking how they could tell their story and raise money. So I essentially sold that first venture after 6 years and decided to take Power to Pitch full time with the whole mission of helping founders get funded faster. So now we're up to, I think, just over 14 million in grants and venture capital raised with my partner, Katie, who you'd interviewed before. So it's been a very, very rewarding process to help really deserving founders understand who they're speaking to, help them communicate, and then secure the right funding to grow.
No, that's awesome to hear. And, when you think about those competitions, right? Could you walk us through some of those key elements that you think contributed to your success with winning these competitions?
Yeah. So first was I never showed up. I was so obsessed with who was going to be there, what were their expectations, and what they wanted. And I think a lot of founders now with what we help is they go at it with what they think is going to be best versus getting into the mindset of who they're actually pitching to. So knowing your audience, one, is super key. So I would do a minimum of 1 to 2 hours, bare minimum of full research of what other types of businesses, what stage they're at that I'm pitching, if I could get access to who was on the judging panel, what their backgrounds were, who were the sponsors of that pitch, because they're the ones driving the checks at the end of the day. And I would make sure that after and or before, typically after, I would add every single one of them on LinkedIn. I would stay connected. I would go more for the network than the money, because it's funny, 6 years later, I'm still 7 years, 6, 7, 8 years later through all those pitches, I'm still in contact with a ton of those judges today. And it's parlayed into even my second business. So really leveraging the network. And then lastly is specifically speaking to the use of funds. So this is also something that relates to the fundraising side of things, is you have to be so clear in your ask and allocation of funds. And a lot of people keep it broad, and it doesn't give your audience confidence in your ability to use the money wisely. So the more specific you can be in outlining the level of impact, who it's serving, how it's being served, those were the key pieces that led me to take that over and over again, and that we help our founders with now.
No, that's awesome. And look, so I'm a basketball guy, right? So when I saw this first stat, right, the 22 out of 23, I'm thinking, look, if I'm in a game, I hit 2 threes, I'm feeling good. I hit 3, I hit 4, I hit 6, I'm on fire. Okay. So at what point, and God forbid, 15, 22, like, all right, I'm in God mode now, right? So at what point did you know that you were on fire when you were winning these competitions?
I think it was the one that I had lost, because I was in this mode of, if I'm going to do all these things right, I had my essentially mental checklist of these things are working over and over and over again. It didn't hit me that I had done so much and did so well in those other ones, because I'm an athlete by nature. I played tennis in college, so everything I do has to be a competition, whether that's healthy or not, I don't know. But it honestly hit me when I had lost that one. And I'd won some more after that. It was kind of towards the end of that 22, 23 mark. And I thought, okay, wow, actually this is pretty impactful. This is one. And the person who won absolutely deserved it. I'm still friends with her on LinkedIn to this day. She's absolutely incredible. And I just thought that, those were those pieces. I couldn't tell you what more I could have done in that moment. And I think that's the only point when it hit me, because I went for the network. I knew that I was going to get X, Y, and Z out of it, regardless of the money. So I was never motivated as much by that piece, even though I really needed it. I just knew that I'm going to prove that I am the most deserving of this in the room. And I'm going to take this the most seriously, and I'm going to deliver the most impact out of it.
No, that's awesome. So would love to now kind of transition a little bit, so that I got the origins of my show truthfully through the pandemic, right? And, we're talking about why people leave their jobs and all those things. And so would love to just briefly take you back to March of 2020, where we're introduced to the pandemic. Tell us a little bit about how the pandemic really affected you and, how it impacted some of your work.
Yeah, so it was interesting that it really hit me so I had paid for $2,000 for a booth in Michigan, and my husband drove up with me. I had hired several people to come help with this booth and had tons of product. And they're saying, things are going on in the news. They're like, the show is still going on and don't worry about it. And then 2 hours into the show, they completely cancel it and say, we're shutting everything down. And we're all like, okay, when are we going to get this money back? And they said, no, we put it into marketing. Go look at your contract. So not a single person got their money back from paying for that booth. You got a 20% discount for next year if you wanted it, but it was not credited. And it was like, what is going on? This is absolute madness. I talked to attorneys. Everything was absolute disaster. And then I invented this pocket headband years before, and it was never selling. I thought it was the coolest thing. It had a little pocket in the back, so you just put your key or ID in the back of your headband. I made it non-slip. I wanted to go for a patent on it, and no one was really buying it. When they saw my wrist wallet next to this headband, that people would always choose the wrist wallet. So I had thousands just sitting in my basement, didn't know what to do with it. And then midway through the pandemic, nurses, you saw all these horror stories of, the masks on their face creating lines. They couldn't really breathe. They were having all these ear problems. So my grandma had shown me how to sew 2 buttons on the side of this headband. And I just did a couple testers. I made a super short video explaining what it did in my backyard to see if I did kind of a pre-order. And I sold out of the entire stock. put my grandma to work within a week. She loved it. She was bored and was like, what more do you have for me to sew? So I ended up getting a manufacturer to reproduce, and did tens of thousands more, got them featured on Good Morning America, 40 boxes with Tori Johnson, and a ton of other pieces. So, I could have let that sit there. I think it made me scrappier in some senses, and I always had to be scrappy with it, but it made me go deeper into Amazon because I couldn't, be going into more retailers and figuring the e-commerce side of things out and the power behind that. But, I had to pivot in a lot of ways, but retail wasn't going to be as big or as high on margin as the e-com world was. So I had turned that kind of into a positive.
No, that's awesome to hear. And like scrappy is a great way to describe how you just did everything with everything you had, right? The backyard video and everything. I love that. I love to hear about that.
Oh, I had semi trucks of inventory coming to my parents' garage, and they said, okay, where's the guys to help unload this? Where's your lift gate? And I just had to raise my hand and say, here I am.
I am the lift gate.
We couldn't take the pallets off. So we had to strip off the entire pallet, take each single box off the truck, keep it in my parents' garage until I ended up getting into a warehouse. But I mean, it was, when I say scrappy, let me tell you, it was the start of being totally scrappy.
I love that. And now you mentioned something earlier, you talked a little bit about locker lifestyle, right? And although, the show, when I talk about why I left, it's around like people leaving their jobs. And I think this is kind of applicable with you as well, right? So you run this company, Locker Lifestyle, you end up exiting in 2022. So could you tell us a little bit about, the origins of the company and then why you chose to, take that exit in 2022?
Yeah, I thought I was going to do that forever, honestly. And my professors in college, I remember always saying, well, what's your exit plan? What's your exit plan? I said, I love what I'm doing. Why would I want to exit? That makes no sense at all. And I always wanted to create more wearable accessories. I wanted more patents. I wanted to be innovative and work with my hands and inspire other people with the products. I even had, with this wrist wallet, it kind of had a safety component too. I had a random influencer DM me and say, oh my gosh, you have to buy your products now, and tell you why. She said she went for a typical run, didn't bring her ID, didn't want to wear the fanny pack like myself. And she ended up getting hit by a car, had no identification. Police couldn't identify her. And hospital couldn't even tell her parents for hours until she had regained consciousness. And she said, now I never run without your product. And I thought, oh my gosh, there's a whole other side of this that I wasn't thinking of. So I was so inspired by that and wanted to do that. But it hit a point, during the pandemic too, where I was just kind of behind my screen, just tracking all of the ads. I wasn't iterating new products. I wasn't in person at shows, connecting with customers. And it wasn't as rewarding. And with that FedEx video, people DMing me, and I was kind of helping them on the side with their pitches, and they were winning. I thought, oh my gosh, this is fueling me again. So I chose to leave and exit the company because I knew I'd had something there. I couldn't just let it go. I'd worked on it for 6 years and had all of these amazing contacts. So I knew that I wanted to do that. And I was under contract 4 times. It was a very frustrating process as well. One fell through the week before my wedding. And yeah, so it was so frustrating, and all for very random reasons. Another one of their businesses had fallen through. They needed the cash, another this and this. And so I couldn't understand what was going on, but I stuck with it. And I'm so glad I did. And it kind of lit a fire under me when one mentor said, Kat, you should just sell the business for $1 and then you can just let it go. And I thought, all I've done for $1. I was so insulted. And I stuck with it and realized that more of my superpower was in the communication and building these foundations to help other founders. Because I saw so many amazing other founders ruin opportunities to get themselves into places they want to go just by simple forms of communication and relationship building. So I just wanted to be able to share that. And that's now what we've done with Power to Pitch. And I would not trade it for the world.
No, that's great. And, so that's kind of a great segue into Power to Pitch, right? So tell us more, about the company and how you all address some of the challenges that really some of those founders were starting to come to you for after that FedEx video.
Yeah. So a lot of it was, I need funding and I don't have a natural network, or the people I'm pitching to, they don't get it. You don't need a target consumer to be able to understand what you're doing. So when I had partnered up with Katie, so she's an active angel in 17 companies now, spent 25 years in finance. She brings the investor perspective to all of our programming, and then I'm the founder and storytelling perspective to our programming. So we have a course and community specifically for pre-seed to seed stage founders who are wanting to raise money, and we help them go for grants at the same time that they're fundraising. It's a very similar process. We help them with pitch formats, deck creation, fundraising strategy, and then once we approve their materials, we'll directly introduce them to investors in their industry. So, which is very rare. We don't take equity from them. They are with us until they get it right, until they completely raise their round. Because I was in so many different accelerators, and I kept getting passed along without the real support. I got conflicting advice from all these different mentors they wanted to pair with, and none had been in the situation that I wanted to get to. I thought that was just so backwards. So that's why we created this course and community. And then privately, we support Series A and do other pitch and fundraising workshops.
Oh, that's great. And, when you talk about these, building investor relationships, right? And clearly that's crucial for securing funding. So could you, and you have this great analogy, right? So could you elaborate on your analogy of treating the investor relationship almost like a marriage or like a dating relationship?
Yeah. So equity is the most expensive form of capital, and so is a divorce. And that's what you kind of got to think of it as, is you put in all this time and it's not something that you're going to jump into overnight. You have to make sure that you can be transparent with this person or fund, that you can be able to support each other, find your strengths and weaknesses between each other, because at the end of the day, you both want to make money. That's the whole point. Investors aren't donating to your cause. So when you're giving up equity, it should be treated as a marriage because it is a longer term relationship, and it shouldn't be one side completely or always controlling the other. Like in marriage, they say it's not always 50-50 all the time. So you got to figure out those areas of, okay, this is what I need from you as a strategic partner, not just a check. And then this is how we're going to be able to work together based on similar resources and things. So we really are thoughtful and strategic in pairing founders with the right type of investors versus mass email lists, looking at general funds from all over the place. We want it to be beneficial for both sides.
Yeah. And what kind of principles or strategies do you teach the founders to really help them not only, we get to the build part, but really maintaining those strong relationships with investors? What's some advice that you have for those founders?
Yeah, first, I think a really common misconception is a lot of founders focus on their deck. If I make this pretty deck, it's going to solve all my problems. They spend so much money with a graphic designer to go out and curate something, and then it's got to change based on who you're speaking to. So first is not going in with your own agenda and pushing. The first time you get on a call with someone, it's getting to know them, not outright, oh, let me start my pitch. Oh, let me share my screen. It's get to know them as a person, share more about you, and let it naturally evolve into, I want to learn more. And a second call can even be more formal with a deck. So we help founders curate their pitch first. We help founders raise without a deck. It's all about that language and communication, and the order in which you say things is really important. So we make sure that they understand it. It comes from your verbalization, your tone, your body language, the way you're emailing someone. You're not oversharing pieces. You're not overbearing or asking for too much. That's the complete start of it. And it's going to slowly evolve over time.
I like that. And so this matching component is something I'm really interested in, because you focus on the founder being matched to the right, investor, but clearly there's obviously the other side of that coin, which is the actual investor there. So, how, when you directly match these folks, how do you ensure that the right people are getting connected to align with that vision? What are some of the steps that you and Katie take to make sure that this is really a good pairing?
Yeah, so our network stems hundreds of different investors at all stages, from angel, VC, family office. And we make sure that when we're having calls with them, we understand what their goals are, what stages they go in on, what resources do they provide, the cadence in which they like to be communicated with, their average check size, the average length of their due diligence period. We're so picky with them and making sure we get all that insight. And then on the founder side, because we're reviewing all of their materials, we have a due diligence checklist. We do a mock investor call with them. We get to know them, their needs, the way they like to communicate, them as a person. And then we'll kind of go through our Rolodex in a way and go through pairing. So we'll show founders pitches anywhere to an average of 50 plus investors. And then they'll get an average of 10 actual face-to-face meetings based on, all right, these people are mutually interested. And then we go from there. Or if it's, hey, I know these people on LinkedIn, how do I communicate with them? We help them with the messaging, curating how to build that relationship, even if it is cold, to really try and get that person on a call.
Oh, that's smart. I like that. And now your workshops, I saw you all have reached over 7,000 participants, right? And so could you maybe share like a success story of a founder who attended one of your workshops and, saw some growth afterwards?
Yeah. So workshops, well, so I it's a really cool opportunity. I support Peapod Digital Labs and helping their vendors pitch buyers. That's not a fundraising one, but because I'd pitched to so many retailers and helped other founders in that sense, they wanted to support their vendors in having successful relationships with the buyers. And actually the pitch process is very, very similar. So I've helped now almost 100 different vendors get in with their buyers and secure meetings and help optimize their pitch with that alone. And then on the fundraising side of things, one founder joined our program after hearing us pitch. They won an $85,000 grant after joining our program while actively fundraising. So they've got 6 figures in not only investment, but then 85,000 in just a grant alone. And then another really cool one, I could go all day. Well, another one was a group of female founders. We had this one investment pitch opportunity come up and we said, okay, this is a live pitch thing, but this fund is strategic for you for these XYZ reasons. They haven't even completed all our program materials. We said, we think you should just go for it. They said, I don't know if it's applicable to us. It just doesn't seem right. And we're like, but we think it is for these reasons. Just go for it. What's the worst that can happen? You get rejected. Who cares? They ended up getting first place and $250,000 investment from.
Boom.
Yeah. And we're like, so how about that? They FaceTime us. They're all excited. Like, I know. I'm so glad we did it.
Exactly. I was about to say that's a nice little come up. So I like that. And you've mentioned this a couple of times around like pitch decks, right? And so what are some like essential elements that every pitch deck should include? And then on the flip side, what do you think are some common mistakes that founders should avoid when they create these pitch decks?
How about I start with some mistakes because I just have these red flags showing up in my mind that I know of.
Go for it.
And one is we absolutely hate a thank you slide. It is such wasted real estate space on a deck. Verbalize your thank you, talk through your gratitude, but no one cares that you said thank you on a slide deck and it's taking up that space. And you have to think about each slide of your deck is like real estate. Part of it, it's either going to make you money or it's going to lose you money. And you have to optimize every square foot of what you're working with. And it's got to be so high level and impactful that if you're going to glance over it, you have to understand what you're doing. Because the average deck gets read in less than between 90 seconds to 2 minutes. That's scanning. That's not reading. So no one's actually going through that. No one has the time. No one cares. They're all overdone and everyone's signing their deck. So we say bullets. Even if it's a follow-up deck, no full sentences needed. You want to have bullets. You want to have product-centric imagery. You want things to be so high level. You should never be sending a deck over 15 to 20 pages. It's absolutely not necessary. For founders, we're helping raise an $8 million round right now. They're using less than 15 slides to secure investment. No one needs that 60-page slide deck. And unfortunately, we see way too many of those, and no one has the time to go through something like that.
No, that's a good point. Very good point. And a part of the show, what I really like to get across is really some advice for others. And specifically with some of the work that you're doing, really around women entrepreneurs, especially those who started businesses during the pandemic, have faced a lot of unique challenges and opportunities. And so based on your experience, what are some specific insights or advice that you would give to women founders seeking funding for their ventures?
I would say to stay true to your company mission and your values, making sure that you are respected as the founder because they're buying into you before what you do. And 2, that they're going to support you long-term in your vision. They're not going to control you. They're not going to take a majority stake because you're desperate for money. You want to find someone who's going to work with you as a team. And there are tons of female-led funds right now that are popping up on a monthly basis. They're out there. There's female-led grants. You don't always have to be pitching to guys. Not that they're bad, but you don't want to be pitching these guys as your target consumer. You can still raise money from them. So a lot of pieces, but we have way too many horror stories of women getting manipulated by a lot of these older male investors. The things that have been said, you don't even want to know. Like for one example, you better not have children or I'm not investing again. That's an actual statement that we have, and plenty others. So we say, find someone who resonates with you. Don't give someone like that another second of what you have or time of day, because it's not going to be worth it.
Yeah, no, that's ridiculous. And when you talk about different challenges, clearly that is not someone whose vision's aligned with what they have going on. And now, as you think about what you're doing moving forward, what type of impact are you hoping to have in really this next chapter of your professional life?
Katie and I want to be a part of the solution that actually raises the 1.9% of women and minorities who secure venture capital. We want to physically help raise that number up. And whether not every business is VC backable, and that's okay, but it's just crazy the lack of resources and support around female and underrepresented founders. So we're really, really doing everything in our power to help move the needle.
That's great. I love that. And what I'd like to do, what I've been doing for season 3 is open it up to you, right? So if you have a question for me. So what's one question you have for me about the show or anything else that I could potentially answer?
I would love to know who a dream guest is and why, and when you're going to secure them on your podcast. Manifest right here.
I love that. So I would say, my dream guest would right now would actually be Adam Grant, right? So the gentleman who coined the phrase Great Resignation was Anthony Klotz. He's a professor over in London. And he really got that interview, the Bloomberg interview, through Adam. So the reporter reached out to Adam first about, hey, this resignations are going on. And he was like, hey, I actually don't really study that, but here's this guy who does. And it was Anthony. And so that then led to everything that truthfully even led to the show. And so I think it would be great for me to speak with him about what he's been seeing in the workspace, the future of work. And obviously, he's got, a couple great books out there. His show is great. Truthfully, I got this part of the show as an inspiration from one of the things that he does on rethinking. And so, yeah, it'd be great to get him on. So I guess if he's listening, Adam, your people can connect with my people, and we can make it happen.
I can't wait to watch that episode.
Absolutely. Well, look, Kat, this was great. This is everything I thought it was going to be. And I'm really glad that Katie connected us. So I want to thank you again for joining the show, and a huge shout out to Katie again for the referral. Love the work that you're doing, and would love for you to share where our listeners can find you and support you online.
Yeah, I'm so grateful that you had the both of us so we can talk about our backgrounds and the mission that we're going after. So Katie and I are both really active on LinkedIn. Just our name's Kat Weaver, Katie Dunn. And then our website, you can apply for our fundraising program at power2pitch.com, POWERTOPITCH.com. And we did start a new YouTube channel with some pitch resources and advice at Power to Pitch. So we'd love to connect with you all there.
Awesome. Well, I thank you for that info. I'll make sure I share all of that info in the show notes. And look, that'll do it for today's episode. Again, I want to thank my guest, Kat Weaver, for joining us today. I hope you all have a great week, and we'll be sure to see you next time. So thanks again, Kat.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks again for listening to Why I Left. Be sure to join us next time for more stories from the Great Resignation. Visit us at www.whyileft.co. That's whyileft.co. And subscribe to the show on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.